Welcome to the Hunger Games. The movie starts off with two dudes in an interview and the one guy gets called the Game Maker, so that's what I will use for him too. We get to see Katniss and her little sister Primrose, but only Katniss really matters. She lives in a poor district. I probably have to explain the district first. Well, it's just the gradation of the society there. The further away you live from the capital, the worse your district is. It's just a stupid system. She goes outside of the district borders to go hunting for something to eat. I think the first part of the whole movie is just there to show us that she's good with the bow. Not as good as Legolas or Hawkeye, but still decent enough to kill something. Then we meet her current boyfriend, if you can call him that. While they are in the forest hunting shit, the big ship appears and it looks like they are too scared to be seen. Maybe they get killed if they're seen outside of the borders, I don't know. Later they are talking about the game, and if nobody would watch it, they had no reason for it to keep it going. They still haven't told us what the game really is, just that it's called The Hunger Games. Don't know what that means. Of course I know what it means, but if you haven't watched the movie before, you're just clueless. The short version is they pick two people at random for each gender in each district and they put them in an arena so they can fight. The whole nation is watching, and since they did that, there was no war. She has bread, what apparently is really rare, and she eats it like she hasn't had something to eat in like a month. They show us some fancy white woman, which we later learn is the person responsible for their district. So there are 12 districts and they live in the last one. The one that's the furthest away from the capital, but not really, because in the third movie we learn there's another district. But that's actually a pretty heavy spoiler, so I'm sorry about it. So the whole district gets in their fancy clothes, just to look pretty for the election, I guess. Don't know exactly why they do it, they probably have to, otherwise they will get killed, because it's not a good show. Her sister has a mental breakdown, because she thinks she gets chosen. Well, they all line up after the registration. They show a freaking awful movie, which is supposed to get you in the mood of wanting to get pulled or volunteering. It shows the same shit I explained earlier. Since they did the Hunger Games, there was no war and all the districts are at peace. The white woman does some really creepy patriotic shit and pulls the first name, and of course, it's Katniss' sister, so she volunteers for her. It's all crazy and shit because it's the first volunteer in District 12 since ever, and that's the 74th game, so that has to mean something. She pulls the guy and it's our boy Peeta. We actually learned that they already know each other. He has thrown some bread at her while she was starving in the rain, so it got all muddy. So she doesn't like him. I don't really know why. At least he gave her something he probably wasn't allowed to. I don't know exactly what she told her sister, because don't buy fruit from them, it's not worth putting a name in more times. Wouldn't that mean they pull again? At least that's what it means. And that wouldn't make sense, only if they keep the names in for next year. So anyway, they tell us that they have 3 minutes but get separated almost immediately, and her boyfriend talks to her a bit and also gets separated immediately. The two get taken to a train, what from the outside doesn't look that promising, but it's like the most luxurious thing on the inside. Fancy tries some small talk, but they don't react. Peeta tries some small talk and Katniss doesn't even move a muscle, because she still doesn't like him because of the bread thingy. That's a pretty reoccurring thing in this movie until she falls in love with him. Because she doesn't really, but so much she does. It's really confusing. Maybe women are just like that. I don't know, I can't relate. The other guy, Hamish or something, is an alcoholic and he doesn't want to help them, but it's pretty understandable. Because they are just losers. Peeta goes after him, tries to talk to him, and apparently it worked. They talk the next day where they have breakfast. At night, Katie watches the replay of the last game, but turns it off because she doesn't want to watch that. Hamish is giving some advice, but that isn't really that helpful. He only tells them basic survival skills. He tells them about the importance of the game and that they need to farm sponsors so they survive. But Katie is just not the type to be liked. When they go off the train and into a wash saloon kind of thingy to get cleaned up, she gets to her stylist and she wants to do something special for her. But he also does the same for Peeta. I don't really understand it. Later in the movie it seems like they don't have the same stylist, but now they have. Or maybe just the two talked. Even if we never see Peeta's stylist, so I don't know. Katniss and Peeta get into a full body condom that burns, which isn't real fire, which I kinda don't believe, but that's a movie where a lot of futuristic stuff is happening, so maybe it is unreal fire. It's basically movie science. President Snow gives a speech where he's announcing the start of the game. They get off the horse cart and some guy is eyeballing them pretty hard. It's almost like he wants to kill them right here and now. I think the movie wants to indicate that that's the evil guy in this movie, that's why they show him that much. Peeta gets off the elevator like he's smuggling razor blades underneath his arms, and they go to each of their rooms. Then we learn that they only have 2 weeks to learn everything they need to learn, like fighting and surviving, all the basic stuff. While they eat dinner, they talk about their strength, like she can use the bow pretty good and Peeta is just strong AF. Even though he doesn't look like it, and Peeta leaves. She is still thinking about the bread thingy and leaves the table too. The next day Peeta messes up the simplest basic stuff like climbing a net, and then Katniss tells him to throw some balls and he throws it at an armor stand with spears. He knocks out like 8 spears. but the scene after there are only 2 spears on the ground now? Where did they go? Did they just glitch into the back rooms? I still have a question about that. If that's really a steel ball, that thing weighs like 120 kilograms, if it's not hollow, and he managed to throw that like 5 to 10 meters? I don't know about that with his physique.
Yeah, buddy! Wait!
You see his hidden talent that he can make his arm look like a tree, what is important for later, and I will comment then. They have to do an ability show off, which is supposed to get you sponsors or some shit. At least it's supposed to give you some imaginary points to show off how much balls you have. She gets into the big room to show off her ball skills, but they don't pay too much attention at first, and even lose the attention they had for her when she misses the first arrow. She lands a second, but nobody gets a second chance, and she does something maybe stupid, or maybe bold, I don't know, and shoots the apple. They all get ranked, Peeta gets an 8 and Katniss gets an 11, which is, as they show, the highest number. After that, Peeta is pissed and doesn't want to travel with cat piss anymore. The Game Master and the President meet, talking about the existence of hope for the poor people and how it has to be limited so it doesn't bloom. And they're eating again, and I feel like this movie is more about eating than the actuality of what they promised us that it is about. Haymitch tells us that Peeta doesn't want to go train anymore and is now on a solo arc, but that's just a stupid excuse that a girl is better than you. Then we get to a show where they show off all the tributes that were basically just a show off for the people watching the show to be betting on someone or sponsoring the one they like the most. Well, we don't see a lot of tributes as they skip a lot of them, and there isn't really anything too useful happening in there the whole time. But when we get to Peeta, we get to the good stuff. Peeta telling the world that he's in love with the girl that came here with him. What the fuck, that TV just looks like a fucking green screen? A 4-year-old could cut it better. After the show, she tries to kill him for what he just told the world, but that's apparently a good thing that Peeta said it. They can really sell their love story to get them to survive. They both lay awake at night. They are too scared and too nervous to sleep. They have a late night talk, and it almost feels like the Stockholm Syndrome takes her over because she looks at Peeta like she wants him. Like Nala in The Lion King looks at Simba, the fuck me look. They all get into the plane to go to the arena and get injected with the trigger. They put a 1-inch tube in your arm and nobody says a thing. They don't even bleed, that's some advanced shit, but you can actually see how the tube retracts. She meets her stylist again who prepares her for the inevitable. She gets into the glass tube, which is their starting point. You see the game making room with a whole lot of people keeping the thing going and the whole freaking movie as hologram shit going. As Mitch said, the middle is just a freaking shit show of people just murdering each other. After they are all done killing, we hear the cannons, which each boom stands for 1 death already. She does the basic survival shit like setting traps, eating and cooking her shit. She hunted and sleeping on trees. They show all the fallen tributes on the big ass screen with some super fancy but bullshit thingy, but so far all the important people are still alive. But still very stupid. There were like 7 cannon shots, but they tell us that 30 people are dead. I know they skipped a lot, but why actually? Just to keep the movie shorter? She's been traveling in the same direction the whole time, so the Game Master tries to get her away from the border, so they set the whole forest on fire. They launch fireballs towards her direction, not really paying too much attention if they kill her or not. But I actually just wanted her to get to the group. They tell us she's pretty close to the border, but we can actually see on their monitor she wasn't close at all, and the group was just as close to it. But what do I know? Probably Snow told him she has to die, or just the general rules of the game to make them meet and fight. But actually, how was she close to the border? The map they showed us is like 1/4 of the map, but even now we see where they start the forest fire, and it seems the group is closer to the edge on the right than she was on the edge at the bottom. She ran from the fire and got onto the river, where the group is basically just waiting for her. So she runs away in the direction she came from. Isn't that where the fire was? I don't know. And again, climbs up a tree and chills there, because nobody group can climb a tree. Yeah, anyway. Peeta suggested they just wait for her to starve to death instead of wasting energy trying to kill her from below. I don't know why it's so hard for them to kill her. The Sigma male had some amazing skills with the spear, so he could just easily throw it and kill her. Anyway, Haymitch gets her responses so she survives, and heals her burning. That's some really strong shit, man. The movie signs come. The next morning she wakes up, her wound is healed, and the little girl found them at night apparently. I don't know, maybe she was there before, but I doubt it. The forest is huge. But we could actually see where she was, or at least she was one of the 2 dots on the map before. She shows her the wasp's nest, that's just chilling there on the tree she slept on. What a coincidence. I also don't really get why she doesn't just stay on the tree until everything is safe. But no, she picks up the bow the girl had, who now just looks like a white orc from Lord of the Rings. She has a really bad acid trip because of the venom. Dreams about her father and how he died and all that stuff. Has some more hallucinations and wakes up finding out that the little girl saved and helped her. So she was asleep for a couple of days? How did she survive? I mean, the little girl probably hunted, but eating nothing and drinking nothing for days isn't that healthy. Especially under those conditions. Well, they figure out the plan, like blowing up the supplies the group gathered, which involves lighting a few fires around the middle so they get distracted. It's a pretty solid plan, but also stupid, because the girl isn't the fastest. I don't know if the plan was to get something or the plan was just to blow up the place, but she just blows everything up. Also, why does she move closer? It doesn't really help her shoot better. Maybe it's the curve of the arrow traveling or something. It just seems awkward that she exposes herself like that. The boy guarding the pile gets killed and we find out the little girl stepped into a trap set up by someone, which actually looks like you could have easily gotten out of. The girl gets killed probably because the streamer was so fucking loud. Or maybe it was the guy who set up the trap was still nearby. She wants Katniss to think for her as she dies, which is the most cringy shit I've ever had to listen to. And then she decides to bury her in some flowers, because why not? She apparently got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
She chose the sign of peace and hope for other districts, and now there are riots in District 11. Katniss has a mental breakdown. I don't actually know why. Maybe still because the girl got killed or something. Haymitch talks to Game Boy, and the Game Boy talks to President. They announce that there can now be 2 winners if they are from the same district. So she goes and looks for Petey Boy, and eventually found him, following his completely obvious bloodline. So yeah, now it's the time for me to comment on his decorating skills. He did his armor nice and tidy because he could see it. But how the actual fuck did he do his face and arm and all the freaking rest of his body without the paintbrush and the mirror? He couldn't see shit. I know the movie goes all out on this. In the books he really just put on some mud and some sticks and let it be. They got into a cave that's way bigger from the outside than it's from the inside, and they get a present from Haymitch, which is just warm water. Well, it's supposed to be soup, but there isn't anything in it. She feeds him, they talk about the past and go to sleep. There's another announcement about them putting out gifts for all the still living because every team needs something. She promised him not to go, but she goes anyway because you would do it for me too. At the feast, as they call it, the redhead was just chilling in the cornucopia as Kenny arrives. She gets overwhelmed by the crazy girl and the BBC saved her by killing the girl because she was friends with the little girl. They show the sunrise and they show a lake. Where the fuck was the lake before? I know there was a lot of rivers. Or did I just not pay too much attention? I don't know. The arena didn't look that big, but that lake is freaking huge. They separate and are doing the old school hunter and gatherer thing, but reverse the roles. There's a cannon shot and each thinks the other is dead, but no, it was just the red-haired girl eating the forbidden berries. The game maker makes it night and releases their newly created Frankenstein dog thingies, which are supposed to kill the rest or at least bring them closer together. They get chased by like 5 or 6 puppies at the end and clamp on top of the thing in the middle, where the Sigma male was just waiting for them. I don't know where he was because we almost saw the whole thing in the shop before, but I don't know, maybe he hid somewhere on there. He gives a speech about how he's just dead anyways, and he could kill just one more and it would be over, but Peeta and Katniss outsmart him, shooting an arrow into his hand. Peeta throws him to the dogs and Katie releases him from a slow death. They did it, but the game dude doesn't want it anymore. Or maybe Snow told him that it's not possible anymore, and they revoked the change, so only one can survive. But they say fuck it and kill themselves. Nah, just kidding. The game maker stopped them and they both win, because they just couldn't have no winners. Capito hates them and Snow actually wants them to be dead. So he kills the game maker, or at least he lets him kill himself by eating the berries. There's another interview which isn't important. They get crowned by Snow and go back to the districts to celebrate the victory. And the movie ends with Snow thinking about a way to kill him, which we see in the next movie.